There was a motion for a mistrial in the Diddy case today. I'm a lawyer in real life. I don't play one on television. And this was one of the more dramatic moments in court today. And let me explain to you what happened. In January of 2012, Kid Cudi's Porsche is set on fire. Now, the prosecution believes it was Diddy who was responsible for that Porsche being set on fire. And today they had a witness from the LA Fire Department who testified about the arson. The witness testified that he collected several pieces of evidence: a lighter, a handkerchief, and a bottle. And on the bottle, there was a fingerprint that he collected as evidence. A few weeks before the fire, Kid Cudi had his house broken into, and they believe that was Diddy also. And he had someone collect fingerprints from the break in. So he gave the fingerprints that he had collected from the break in to the officer so that they could compare it to what was on the bottle. So the officer took these items into evidence. In August of 2012, the investigator discovers that the fingerprints are missing. In fact, the fingerprints have been destroyed. Now, he never authorized these fingerprints to be destroyed. And he testified that it was very unusual that these fingerprints would disappear. So the government is asking questions about how these fingerprints disappeared, and the defense objects. And I was sitting in a courtroom thinking, is the government really saying they believe Diddy had something to do with the disappearance of those fingerprints? That's what it sounded like to me. So the defense, they objected. Eventually, they had a sidebar with the judge about this issue, and it became a pretty big deal. So, one of the questions that the government asked the investigator was, in your 15 years, has evidence been destroyed by someone who was not a member of your team? At that point, the defense objected. There was a sidebar. And after the sidebar, we had a recess. But this issue was not resolved, not at all. So, of course, the government denied that that's what they were implying. In fact, they said, we were just trying to head off any claims by the defense that the LA Fire Department had improperly disposed of these fingerprints. But listen to the question that they asked the investigator, and you tell me, do you think they were trying to imply that Diddy somehow was involved in the disappearance of these fingerprints? So, one of the questions that they asked was, Detective, in your 15 years, has evidence been destroyed by someone who was not a member of your team? The judge seemed to be siding with the government because he said he didn't think that was a reasonable inference, that he didn't think the government was saying Diddy somehow destroyed the fingerprints. So the defense moved for a mistrial. They said that this was such an important issue because the jurors had already expressed during jury selection that they thought Diddy could buy his way out of the criminal charges. And the idea that he was somehow involved in these fingerprints disappearing fed into that. So the judge denied the motion for mistrial, but he did agree to give a curative discussion. There was a lot of argument about what that instruction should be. The defense wanted the instruction to say that the government's question had been improper. The government said, no, 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 don't do that because that would make us look bad. That would prejudice us. And the judge finally agreed on a curative instruction, and I'll let you know what it is. So the judge finally agreed to give the following instruction, and it was that regarding the destruction of the fingerprint card and the answers given, they are irrelevant to this case and the defendant and are to be disregarded. So that was the instruction he finally gave. Y'all let me know what you think. Do you think the government was trying to suggest that Diddy had somehow been involved in the disappearance of these fingerprint cards? Do you think Diddy could have been involved in the disappearance of these fingerprint cards? Let me know what you think in the comments.